This is MIP. Get woke.
Happy Veterans Day, everyone. We're going to shift gears a little bit now. We all know the great work that Color of Change has always done and always continues to do. My brother joining us now. I have to apologize. I'm very guilty for not having him on the show enough. He probably could be on the show. He didn't have the schedule wouldn't permit. He probably should be on the show every day because Color of Change is always doing very, very important work. You even just heard Angelo give him a shout out. If it had not been for Color of Change, Bill O'Reilly would probably still be on the air. But that's not all that they do. They deal with a number of issues. We have them, I think, as a movement locked and loaded in case this NFL situation doesn't improve. So I'm putting y'all on notice on that as well. But they've also done a study dealing with another subject. What's the deal with Hollywood? What's the deal with writers in Hollywood? How we're portrayed, if we're portrayed enough. And I know I'm saying this in the context, everybody is losing their minds over Black Panther and The Lion King. But let's not count our chickens before they hatch. There's still a lot more that needs to be done in Hollywood in terms of diversity. Folks, also join us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Make It Plain. Joining us now, the inimitable executive director of Color of Change, my brother, Rashad Robinson. Rashad, good morning to you, man. How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Tell us about this report you all have done, Race in the Writers' Room.
Well, we really wanted to step back on a lot of the work we've been doing in Hollywood over the last several years, work inside of particular shows with helping to push them around storylines, bringing together writers in salons. We've been doing a lot of work, and we wanted to step back and really give Hollywood a snapshot of the problem because we had been signaling the alarm, but there was a lot of anecdotal conversation. So we brought Darnell Hunt in from UCLA, the Dean of School of Social Work, and he worked with us on a study where we looked at 234 writers' rooms across both streaming and network and cable platforms. We looked at those writers' rooms for around the inclusion of Black storytellers and Black writers and Black showrunners. And then we looked at its impact on the content that we actually see. There's already been a lot of studies on the role that content on TV plays and how people are treated in hospitals, how people are treated when they go into court, when they're in school, how people are treated just in everyday life. And so we knew the impact of TV already. But the fact of the matter is the systemic exclusion of Black writers and Black talent and the impact it has played on what we see on TV has just been striking.
Rashad Robinson with us, folks. Quick calls, 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748 is the number to call. You know, I must say, honestly, Rashad, Dick Gregory and I were very close. We lost him recently. And you know what Dick always used to say to me? And I think I probably took it for granted. That's why what you're writing, what you all have done is so timely. He would say, Mark, it's the writers. It's about the writers. It's always about the writers. The writers make and break everything. So you're right. You know, we can talk about certain big name stars we know, but if we're not in the writer's room, it really doesn't make a difference, does it, Rashad?
It absolutely makes no difference. I remember actually when I was sitting at home watching the beautiful speech that Viola Davis gave at the Emmys, where she talked about women of color are just as capable of any other women, but the parts aren't there. And the parts aren't there because people aren't writing them. And the sort of cardboard roles or the kind of additions at the end of the fact that don't give people actors and actresses a real opportunity is part of the story. But the fact of the matter is that we saw from the systemic exclusion of the writers sort of the way the stories are told, not just the diversity of the actors and actresses. We looked at the 9 crime dramas, for instance, that are currently on TV, and only one of those crime dramas have more than one black writer in their writer's room. So as these shows are set in urban communities, are depicting the criminal justice system in this moment, we're looking at it and we're seeing shows that are completely whitewashing the narratives and the stories, creating who's the villain, who's the hero, and it just has long-term impacts, economic impacts on writers for their ability to actually move up, and impacts on how people are treated.
Hollywood Reporter, which is no small publication, has written, ladies and gentlemen, about Color of Change's report. Quarter before the hour, Rashad Robinson of Color of Change with us. and it lifts this data, as Rashad has said. 234 broadcast cable and streaming scripted series, 2016 and 2017, as he said. That's what they looked at. 2/3 of the shows, no black writers in their rooms. And all black writers accounted for just 4.8% of the 3,817 staff scribes. Those writers were predominantly staffed on shows led by black showrunners who represented just 5.1% of the pool. 2/3 of those series had 5 more black writers in their rooms, although all had multiple white writers as well. By contrast, 69.1% of white-led writers' rooms had no black writers at all. Now, I just want to read this because this even breaks it down further, Rashad. No Hulu series employed a black writer, while every show on AMC, Showtime, and TBS had 0 or just 1 black writer, as did 23 of 25 CBS series, 14 of 15 CW series. So we're pretty much missing everywhere, aren't we, Rashad?
Yeah, and what we learned was that even when there's like one black writer, those black writers are oftentimes marginalized in such a way that they're not able to actually get their point across. There's a diversity program that was created by Hollywood several years ago, and Darnell, as part of the research, Professor Hunt spent time actually doing some qualitative research where we brought together different focus groups of writers who were in writers' rooms where there was a black showrunner, writers that were in where they were their only black writer in the writers' room, and then writers' rooms where there was some diversity, but not a black showrunner. And what we saw in the qualitative was that this diversity program has completely failed. Hollywood has just basically tried to put lipstick on a pig, because what they've done is they hire black writers and they put them into shows and they pay them from the network, not from the show. So at the end of the season, when the black writer is hoping to get hired full time, many of these showrunners will say, hey, like, I like you, but I'm not going to hire you because I can get someone for free from the network. And then these writers go away. The problem with that is that part of any job, but particularly in Hollywood with writers' rooms, is getting enough credits under your name and being able to rise up the ranks and to be able to have enough opportunities to do full shows and to be on a show for a full season so that you can eventually become a showrunner. And the report, we actually had the foreword. The foreword for the report was written by Mara Brecker Keel, the creator of Being Mary Jane, the creator of Girlfriends and The Game. She has 2 shows with her husband Salim coming on the air next fall. And we've actually been helping in the writer's room on those shows. But Mara, when she got her break and rose up the ranks, she hired a gentleman named Kenya Barris in her writer's room. And Kenya Barris is the creator and head writer of Blackish. And so when black people get opportunities, they've brought other people along. But when they've been systemically excluded, what we see is a whitewashing of our stories and our narratives, which has deep impact on how we get to live in this society.
866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748. If you are watching us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, you can see on your very screen some of the findings and graphics from Color of Change's own website. Hollywood.colorofchange.org is the actual URL. Rashad Robinson, Executive Director of Color of Change, folks, what do we need to do about this? I mean, I'm reflexive when it comes to our liberation and justice, and when it comes to color change. I'm reading some of these networks. Well, we need to stop supporting these doggone networks, don't we, Rashad?
We absolutely need to stop supporting some of these networks. I will say that the numbers, putting them out, is only part of the story. The advocacy has to come with it. Information alone is not power. Power is power. And what we have to do is take this information and force these networks to realize that we're not going to continue to play business as usual. And we've already started a number of conversations with writers and put out a series of recommendations for them to engage with. It's also, I think, we've heard from a lot of Black showrunners and writers in Hollywood thanking us for putting out this report, because many of them, when they start to speak out in forceful ways, they get blackballed. And so they're like, thank you for taking the lead. And what we're doing now is we're doing a series of salons in Hollywood, really trying to sort of elevate the content of this report. We're doing big presentations with the Writers Guild of America, really pushing them to take more proactive action around the contents of this report. But the networks that have actually done pretty poorly, some of them have started to reach out to us, started to have conversations about our recommendations. I think some of the numbers, they were just hoping no one knew. They weren't paying attention to the numbers. They were continuing to do business as usual. Now the answer is that we've got to push them. I think what oftentimes can happen is that we see shows like Atlanta or Insecure or Queen Sugar, or many of the shows that have gotten critical acclaim, that have incredibly diverse writers' rooms, and we think that TV on a whole has changed. When in fact, so many of these, even the new platforms that are supposed to be taking us into the future, like Hulu and Netflix, we see that they're even worse in some cases than the old networks, than the old guard.
So you're really talking about quantity quality over quantity. These shows are good, we enjoy them, but they really don't reflect the diversity that's needed.
Yeah, and they're one or two, and so they're like exceptions to the rule. And the fact of the matter is it also speaks to this idea of the business model that's often used to push back. Some of the top grossing shows are shows that come out of, Lee Daniels and Shonda Rhimes' shop. That some of the most critically acclaimed are ATL and Insecure. These shows are winning Emmys. These shows are making a lot of money for advertisers. And you would think Hollywood would see that and they would start really shifting their practices in terms of who they give opportunity to, who they hire, who they move up. But it doesn't actually happen that way. White folks can have failure after failure after failure and still have more opportunity. Black folks are expected to not just succeed for the race, but even when they succeed, their success is considered an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's considered sort of outside of what's normal. I was just in Hollywood last week doing a number of meetings, and even conversations about Get Out and Girls Trip, which were such commercial successes, and critics really enjoyed them as well. They're being talked about in some ways as like anomalies, and when in fact, how many times do Black people have to succeed, not only on the critical success, but on the commercial success, for Hollywood to recognize that our stories matter? So there's got to be something else there. And as we looked at the impact of these stories on the content, on the lived experiences, we felt like this wasn't just an issue of what we do with our Saturday nights and Friday nights and popcorn, but a real issue of civil rights.
We're just about out of time, but folks, I want you to go to hollywood.colorofchange.org. The link's also on our social media right now. Get up on this, and then we're going to support Color of Change. Rashad, we got to get you back in here as well to talk more about this in the very near future. My brother, we need to get you back in here on a regular basis anyway. But, man,
let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Colorofchange.org. Thank you, Rashad. Love you, my brother.
Take care.
All right, take care now. Folks, we got to go. If all minds are clear, it has been made plain.
And gave us